Hello, welcome. My name is Brian Mosley, the founder and CEO of Safe Haven Games. Going to be introducing you guys to our new role-playing game, Freelancers, Skies Over Tolindia. It's coming to Kickstarter in February. We're really excited about it.
I'm excited to make a character.
Awesome. Yeah, so right now we're going to go over character creation, and you guys are going to be able to make your own characters, and we'll be able to try them out.
First thing, do we choose names or do we just start?
Yeah, so we should definitely start with selecting your species. In Freelancers, there's a wide number of species to choose from. Each one is going to help determine starting abilities as well as your social standing and how different political factions will be treating you. So there's the humans, the elves, the dragonkin, Skilose, or the dogmen, and the Gryzun, which are the rodent men. There's several different options within each of those. Did any of those stand out to you guys?
I think looking over the rodent people was looking pretty fun for me.
Yeah, and I was looking at the elves. I liked the specifically half-elf.
Okay.
The idea that the dragon blood kind of causes them to lose a little bit of control.
Yeah, lose their cool a little bit. So within the Gryzuni, there are the Zayats, which are hare folk. They're kind of like large rabbit people. They're very agile and they have very strong, powerful legs that can help them get into advantageous positions. There's the Mish, which are mice, probably 3 to 4 foot tall rodent men, very quiet and stealthy. And then there are the Krysa, ratkin. They are very durable and they can take a lot of punishment. They gain advantages based on the number of injuries they've suffered. And then lastly are the Stoutlanders, which are burly rodents. They're capybara people. And so with a very strong emphasis on charm and social situations.
Gotcha. I got distracted by the mouse with the long rifle, so
okay, awesome.
I think the Mish will be where I start.
Perfect. And then for the elves, there are the traditional elves, which in Tolindia, elves are not your dainty, delicate, foresty warriors. They actually come from the highlands, and they are crazed, kind of more barbarian warrior people. They are born with some dragon blood in them that gives them longevity as well as the tendency to go into a berserker rage, allowing them to deal additional damage at the cost of their own defense. Half-elves have the same dragon blood, however, they have less control over it. So they'll find that they allow it to consume them more often, making them actually berserk stronger with their diluted blood and have less control over it.
I think definitely the half-elf. I love playing flawed characters. So
Awesome. With your species selected, we can kind of go into some of your backstory.
Okay.
So you guys would have an opportunity to determine where did you grow up from, and are you a refugee from the Gryzun Empire, or are you a third generation of refugees, or were you just born here? And that will help you to determine role playing kind of your character's social standing as well as their personal beliefs and what kind of missions they might want to take and what kind of actions they'll take on the missions they're a part of.
Laura, did you have ideas?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, what I love about half-elf, it's half human, half elf. So what was a scenario in which those two got together? Because even in this world, it's described that that's not necessarily a common pairing. So my backstory is my character, her father had an affair with an elf. So she was raised by her elven mother up until maybe 7 or 8. And then as her elven mother was dying, she brought her to the father and really forced her to be then raised by this common human family. And so definitely dealing with being an outsider, the majority of her life being grown up and always trying to prove herself to her father and human family.
That can't help with the berserker range at all.
Exactly.
Very nice.
All right. Any ideas for your miche?
Yes. So my miche, I think, this picture is just too good. So is a hunter, was sort of at an early age, one of the primary hunters for the tribe or colony or wherever they were born. And eventually just kept expanding the hunting area until went someplace new and ended up in Tolinda.
Okay, so once you have your backgrounds kind of written down for your own sake, for your role-playing ability, we can go into actually determining your personalities. These are the heroic virtues and vices your characters will face. They will both impact your stats and starting abilities, as well as give you advantages and disadvantages that you will have to roleplay around.
Mine's definitely based on my backstory, and so her virtue is determined, and that's really from a childhood. I've always been told, no, you can't do this, no, you don't belong, no, you. And she just stuck with it and insisted on whatever she wanted to do. So determined, which is a +1 to vitality, I believe. Yep, +1 to vitality.
I ended up with intuitive is the one that I chose.
Okay.
The freelancer, they go with their gut. That's what it says here. And I think, as a marksman, I don't necessarily follow the rules all the time, but usually everything works out.
Awesome.
Most of the time.
And then vices.
Well, my vice is curious.
Okay.
So always kind of looking to see what's out there. And sometimes it's distracting.
Yeah, and I chose the vice restless. I think she's always been, people are trying to put her in a box, make her do things she doesn't want to do. And she has little patience for that. And that has continued on into her freelancer work. So we'll see what trouble that gets her into.
Yeah, awesome. Your virtues, on top of increasing your stats in one of many ways, they will also give you an ability that is a powerful ability that you can spend heroic actions, which are a very valuable resource that we'll get into later. They'll allow you to spend those heroic actions to either automatically succeed at a check or to influence other characters and stuff around you. Whereas vices are kind of the exact same thing, but they are triggered by your GM to, maybe cause you to be more curious in a situation than is necessarily good for you. And players can choose to spend heroic actions to ignore the effect of that trigger, so that they, you may be curious, but you can use that heroic action to be more disciplined in a specific situation. But it will encourage players to be role-playing that trait on their own.
Intuitive and curious. You're like, oh, my gut says that I should go and investigate that treasure chest.
And because I'm restless, I won't check for traps in that treasure chest.
Right.
Smash it open.
Yeah.
I really want to see what's in this side. Can you smash it open?
Right, there you go. What happens if you touch that?
Uh-oh.
Right. You guys are gonna choose your bonds. This is really important for the party. How did you guys become a team? Do you guys have any history before you joined the Freelancers or not? Were you just recruits at the same time? Are one of you more veteran than the other, maybe? So especially when you have a larger crew, you can really play around with the relationships and the bonds. Do you have specific bonds outside of your party? If maybe your parent or something is a high-ranking member of the Freelancers that you're trying to live up to, or maybe an aristocratic family member. Well, in this case, your bonds, you just mentioned in your backstory, you would have a bond with your father, who might not really want you around.
Yeah.
And his political views might start shaping yours in an opposite direction. Maybe he's all for the Parliament, and you start saying, you know what? No, I want to go this direction. And it can start shaping how you play a character,
Sure.
as well as the type of team you guys play as.
I like the idea of having a home base that we can
Yeah.
sort of like work out of.
Yeah, my character is always trying to find family and home. And so I think the
Nice.
independent team makes the most sense for us.
After determining your bonds and the kind of party that you guys are, we go into determining your statistics. So each of your stat values are going to start at 2, and I'll kind of go through what each one is and what it governs.
Okay.
So your strength determines your physical prowess with martial weapons, as well as the amount of damage you can deal with those weapons. It will also determine how intimidating you are, so it will help with intimidate checks. That more than a few NPCs have surrendered because of a particularly intimidating character. I think I know who that's going to be.
You know, the half elf who can go berserk at any moment.
Exactly, yeah. Then there's dexterity. That's going to governing things like your physical ability to manipulate things, as well as your marksmanship, pickpocketing, lockpicking, as well as actually as piloting. So you might find yourself in the role of a pilot because if you have a high dexterity and you're able to manipulate things very finely. Agility is more of your ability to jump out of the way and react quickly to things. So that's going to be your defense is going to be determined by your agility, as well as how stealthy you are, or your acrobatics. So if you're on an airship that's shaking, your ability to keep your footing or stay upright in any given situation, or to climb up things will be determined by your acrobatics. Vitality is your physical toughness. That will help determine your starting health, as well as your athletic ability. So in wrestling or grappling, as well as lifting or pulling things. Intelligence is going to be used for detecting things, as well as studying runes and languages. It's going to be for lore, engineering, healing and repairing airships, as well as for gunnery, which is going to be, instead of taking aim down the barrel of a cannon or a rifle, you're actually trying to calculate for trajectory and wind velocity and a lot of other things that makes firing a cannon or a mortar much more about intelligence than marksmanship. There's charm, which is used to either convince people of something that's true or to trick them with something that's not true. And then resolve, which will simply determine the number of heroic actions, that very valuable resource that you start the game with. And you can use those heroic actions to stop yourself from having a vice triggered, to trigger a virtue, or when your character is reduced down to 0 health remaining, you spend a heroic action to go back up to full health with a randomly determined heroic injury. So heroic actions based on your resolve will keep you alive longer despite potentially massive damage. All of those will start out at a 2, and you will be able to pick 2 of those stats to increase by 1.
Mm-hmm.
You may choose 1 to decrease by 1 to improve another one by 1. And then all of your race and your virtue will also add in their bonuses here and penalties as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff in here to kind of figure out where your character belongs.
Exactly.
Intuitive gives me a plus to my intelligence. So I have a 3 intelligence, but I could drop one of those to move up another one, which I think that I'm going to do.
Yeah, and then as a half elf, I add 2 to my strength, so it really gets doubled to 4. But I have to subtract 1 from dexterity. And then my virtue of determine adds 1 to vitality.
I've kind of gone through here and averaged up a number of things.
Yeah.
Dexterity is big at a 4.
Okay.
Strength is just 2. Agility was a 3. And 1 because I'm a mouse, which makes both of those 4.
Yeah.
And then my intelligence, I get a +1, but I'm going to subtract it to even out my charm.
Well, I decided with my 2 points, I decided to increase her resolve. I think that just determine resolved. It really goes with the background. And I also increased her intelligence because in my mind, she did have the opportunity to learn a little bit of engineering, like working with machines.
Okay.
Some kind of self-taught. I think eventually maybe she wore down her father a little bit and he taught her a few things about working with machines. And then I think also a little bit of piloting and marksmanship. And so because of that, I'm also going to bring her dexterity back up to 2. She lost a dexterity point because she's half elf, but I think her background being raised by this common family, she had the opportunity to overcome that. And then I'm going to reduce charm down to 1, which is not necessarily optimizing, but I just think with her backstory, it just makes sense. She's not
very uncouth.
Yeah. she uses brawn, not brain, to get her way.
Awesome. If you're looking for something to spend an additional point on, I would always recommend resolve. The number of heroic actions you have is big. Your skills, each one starts at rank 1. So you're going to be able to start with rank 1 in each skill. And every character is going to, at character creation, have 10 points to put into any skills that they choose, with the exception that you can only start a character with a maximum of rank 3 in any skill.
Yeah, so we can only add a max of 2 points.
Exactly.
So let's see. So I need marksmanship and stealth. Those are the big ones. Acrobatics.
I obviously added to both of the strength-based skills, prowess and intimidate, just naturally for the half. I did a max add. I got my max 3 for prowess. Intimidate, she's just at 2. She's still half elf, so there's that discrimination against them. Yeah. And then, some of my ads were based on her backstory. Again, I think that she maybe learned from growing up with her family and eventually from her father a little bit about marksmanship and driving more ground vehicles. So I added to marksmanship and piloting and added max to engineering because I think she probably snuck into the family barn to play around with the old broken machinery in there. And she taught herself a lot about engineering.
Unlike other games with like a specific class system, this is more freeform. So there are a great number of ability trees, and each ability tree has a novice ability 6, journeyman abilities, and an 8th mastery ability. And you will have to unlock the journeyman ones by learning a novice. And once you've learned all of them, you can learn the mastery. And you can mix and match skills from different trees to really highlight a specific skill and gain a myriad of bonuses and really, again, fine-tune your character to be what you want the playstyle to be.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say she grew up with a human family, but more of a common human family. So I don't think education in that sense was much. It was more street education,
Got it.
toughening up. Again, lots of half brothers she grew up with. So
Okay.
she had, and plus probably was picked on by all the neighborhood kids. So really more physical and tough. So probably more the fighting styles. And I would say more of like the bludgeoning type weapons versus the fine, swords and everything.
Yeah. So so we can we'll go through Armor Breaker for you. And just that ability to smash through an opponent's armor is going to be pretty brutal. And then, did any stand out to you as well?
The piloting.
Okay, so the piloting path. Awesome. So, that'll give you the ability to grant everyone on your airship, the novice ability there is just pilot training. And that'll give you the ability to give all of your crew members passively 1 additional dice to all checks while they're in the air. And that'll be important for things like if you do have to do a daring maneuver while in your airship, everyone else has to make an acrobatics check to keep their footing, or else they might be, lose their balance and be at disadvantage, or maybe even be knocked flat and have to spend actions getting up and readying their weapons again. So giving them that added bonus, your piloting skill really is coming into play, making it easier for everyone else to keep their footing and gain advantages on their cannon aims and everything like that.
Cool.
And can you remind me the effects of Armor Breaker?
Yeah, you half an opponent's armor when you attack them, rounded down. So you're going to be cutting through armor like it's butter. Or I should say smashing through armor.
Yeah. And I noticed in my species, there's also innate abilities.
Yes. So each species has some kind of innate ability to them.
There's 2.
Yeah.
It looks like Blood of the Highlands.
Blood of the Highlands.
And Hot-Blooded.
Blood of the Highlands is that whenever your character suffers a heroic injury,
Okay.
they must roll their resolve number in dice. So making a resolve check, and they need to have successes equal to or greater than the number of heroic injuries they've suffered, which is really a minimum of 1 because you're taking 1 heroic injury to do this.
Yeah.
And if you fail, you go berserk, and so you'll actually deal your strength value in additional damage whenever you're in melee combat, but your defense is halved, so you'll find yourself hit more often.
Got it.
Which will more likely trigger death, as well as
That little thing.
additional heroic actions or heroic injuries.
Yeah.
So it's a pros and cons. And then hot-blooded means that your berserker ability also does additional damage at the cost of it's much more difficult for you to resist. So you'll be at disadvantage to resist those effects. And then you had some innate ability.
Yes, I had a small innate.
Yeah, so small means that enemies are going to be at -1 dice when they're attacking you in in ranged, because you're just a hard target to hit.
Yes.
But you're also going to be they're going to be at +1 dice to attack you in melee, because you're just
Small.
It's hard for you to fight. Yeah.
Yes, and then I also had quiet.
Yeah, and then quiet is that you're going to gain advantage to your stealth checks, as it's difficult for them to know you're there because just this tiny little quiet thing.
Little
quiet as a mouse.
With a big rifle.
Starting characters gain 1 ability from any tree. You guys have selected that. Next would be to equip your characters. So every starting character is assumed to have a set of basic freelancers equipment. This is what you would be issued, upon graduating from basic training. That's going to be things like a bedroll, ammo pouches, your standard basic clothes, your freelancer's uniform, dress uniform, just, all the basics that you would picture yourself needing. And then you'll have 200 escudos, which is the currency of Tolindia, to go out and equip yourselves.
So again, she definitely tends more towards those bludgeoning weapons. So she chose the mace as her primary melee weapon. It did, the damage was 4 plus strength, so it was 8 damage.
Nice.
And, yeah. With 4 piercing.
All right, which on top of your ability is going to be pretty brutal.
Yeah. Piercing, you said, is the amount of armor it can go through.
Yeah.
And with me being able to have armor.
If someone had, let's say, armor 8, it would have that, your ability would have that to 4, and then your mace would cut through 4 points of that. So Up to armor 8, you would be able to just ignore, like it was tinfoil.
Yeah.
That's not a small number to ignore.
Yeah, I know. It had a couple of traits too: blunt force and unsteady.
Blunt force, meaning that it's much more difficult for your opponents to parry. They're going to actually need to get a critical success to try and to be able to parry you. And then unsteady, meaning that if you are taking strike actions with this weapon multiple turns or multiple actions consecutively, it'll be more difficult to do. So it'll be at a disadvantage for every time past the first.
Right.
In a row. Yeah.
So if I took a break.
Exactly. If you were to strike and then focus and strike again, you could negate that penalty by just taking a breather and re-aiming before you wildly swing. Not sure if I believe you'll do that, but
As if she's gone berserk or not.
Right.
And then the weapon that I was looking at was the Belmonte 1888, which is a long-range rifle.
Yeah, it's a bolt-action rifle. So that's going to be really good for, I believe it has only one shot per reload, but you'll be able to just fire, reload, fire in one round. No problem. And
that does damage 7.
Yeah.
It is a long-range weapon, and it pierces 4.
Armor options as well. So did you guys...
Yes. I believe light armor was something that was available. And that looked like the right thing for my small little mouse.
Yeah. Light armor's good. It lets you kind of move freely, and your character, especially as a little guy trying to get out of combat as much as possible, he's going to benefit from that. So that's 2 points of armor, which, as you can see, many things...
go through armor.
Many things go through armor, but there are ways later. You'll notice that there's also a spot for runes and traits on your armor.
Yeah.
And so you can have someone imbue rune magic into your armor or your weapons, actually, giving them a lot of bonuses. One example, for example, you could have someone put a muffle rune or a silent rune on your rifle, which makes it naturally gain the silent weapon trait. So it's no louder than firing a bow.
Luckily, in my hunting trip, I've also found a dragonkin helmet.
Awesome. So that's going to be a piece of medium armor that helps you to ignore head wounds. So if you do take that heroic injury and you do roll up a head wound, your helmet will allow you to ignore the results of that, and you'll only have spent a heroic action to go back up to full health. But what armor and stuff were you
She has the Highlander shield.
That'll be good.
Yeah, which had a trait of defensive.
Defensive means that you're going to increase your natural defense by 1 in against enemies using a melee combat against you. And then I believe it also added parry, which gives you the ability to actually attempt to parry enemy attacks.
Right.
And with that, you guys have created your characters.
So I think that does wrap up character creation.
Yeah,
right?
And so we'll come back in a bit, and we'll actually put your characters to the test, and we'll go through some combat actions and see how the mechanics of the game actually work in conflict.